Hello everyone, thank you for clicking on the video. This is the second video in How to Shy, as I'm starting to call it. A series of videos about how to play our version of the Hyperborean Age with Savage Worlds rule set. We are going to start with looking at how to build a character not from the ground up like we did in the former video, but how to build one from an archetype. The archetypes I provided are all novice rank beginning characters that have one edge remaining to be chosen by the player. And all you need to do to improve a profile is to add your racial bonuses and hindrances to it. You may have to take extra hindrances to balance out any discrepancies between the profile's bonuses and the modifications your racial type requires. For instance, if a profile already has a skill set to a D10, and you have a bonus from your racial selection of a D4 to that skill, this skill is going to be credited to a D12 per the exemptions we mentioned in the earlier video that allow you to go over the D10 ceiling. But let's say that a profile has an edge or a hindrance that conflicts with your racial profile. For instance, your racial profile has an automatic toughness advantage, but the profile that you're taking from the archetype has a frail hindrance. Which one wins out? In such cases, the edge takes precedence, and the hindrance that conflicts with it must be changed to something else. Likewise, if a racial selection has less skill points than normal, you may need to take hindrances to either gain more skill points so that the profile's listed skill levels could be bought, or you're going to need to lower the skill dice of the profile for the archetype. How does this work? Well, we're going to take a character from a fiction piece I wrote. I write fiction pieces about the Hyperborean Age, as it's one of my favorite fantasy settings, called Jormungand. Jormungand is a Vanir woman, and in her story, she was captured by the Aesir and was later freed by a wandering Sumerian hero. Jormungand obviously was going to take the Vanir racial profile, which is as follows. She's also decided to take the archetype of sailor, because a lot of the Vanir are sailors. And the bonuses for being a sailor, according to its archetype, are as follows. Now becomes the adjustment process. Vanir have a D6 beginning strength and vigor. That's a +1 die step to those two primary stats. We're going to modify the sailor profile so that now the traits are as follows. Agility D6, smarts D6, spirit D6, strength D8, vigor D10, fates back to a D6. Now, as she is a woman, she also needs to choose one of three primary traits with which to gain a +1 fate die. She's decided to place this on her agility. This will give her a bit of an edge in many physical actions. Also, for being a woman in the Hyperborean Age, Jormungand gains a +1 charisma modifier. Next, we adjust her skill selection. Vanir have an athletics of D4, a boating of D4, and one fighting skill of choice at a D4. This adjusts the listed skill dice level to the following. And these are skills coming from the sailor archetype. Athletics D8, boating D10, brawling D6, medium weapons D8, small weapons D6, speech D6, survival D4, tactics D6, thrown weapons D8. She decided to up the thrown weapons skill. This now allows us to recompute her secondary traits as well, since we have all of her skills chosen. And since her agility did not change, we don't have to readjust her dodge or initiative ratings. Since her weapon skill didn't go past a D8, the formerly highest weapon skill that she had, her parry remains unchanged. However, since her vigor increased, so too does her toughness. Her toughness goes from being a 6 from the sailor profile to being a 7, but keep in mind that Vanir are also tall at size +1, and toughness from size is also added. So now she's got a toughness of 8. She had 2 rage from being a sailor. She's going to get 2 more from being a Vanir, giving her 4 rage points altogether. But her rage die is unchanged and is still only a D4. Now all these profiles have been constructed so that you have that one remaining edge, and this is a concept we got from Core Savage Worlds when they talk about profession edges. She's going to spend this edge, because in the story she was very charismatic, to be more attractive. This is going to add another +2 to her charisma for a +3 charisma total. Now, because of Vanir culture, the idea of the jailbird hindrance on the sailor profile, it doesn't quite fit. The Vanir are loud and boisterous and more than prone to brawl. They wouldn't really put people that misbehaved in their cities in jail. There'd probably be a duel or a blood guild or something like that. So we need either 2 minor hindrances to replace this one major one, or another major hindrance. Borrowing from the fiction piece, I decided to assign her a -1 minor hindrance of lesbianism, because when the hero hits on her and this comes out, he feels very chagrined. And we're going to make this a hindrance because in the Hyperborean Age, people might react negatively to Yormunda's sexual preferences. She's going to encounter other women who are paranoid about her, and men that are going to refuse to believe that she isn't really interested in them. The second negative one hindrance we're going to put on there is going to be nightmares, reflecting the fact of while the time she was captured by the Asir, they beat her and tortured her, did a bunch of other nasty things to her. So each day she's got to make a spirit test or she suffers one long-term level of fatigue. For languages, Yormunda's smarts allows her 3 additional languages. She natively speaks Nordheimer, the language of the Vanir and the Asir. We've decided she's also going to speak Zengaran and Argosian, which are both naval powers that the Vanir sometimes cross swords with. She's going to leave those at a D8. But then the sage decides to do something novel and allows her to take her remaining skill selection and break it into 2 different languages, as long as they're at a D4 rather than a D8. And because of the story in which she was traveling through parts of Pictlin and had met a Cimmerian, we're going to let her have both Pictish and Cimmerian at the D4 level. That's colloquialism, simple sentences. She can understand most of a conversation, but to participate in it, it's really difficult. Now we've got almost all the hard game data in place for her character sheet now, but we need to choose an alignment. Following the story and how she behaved in it, she's likely a survivor or hard-bitten. Given her gentleness to the main hero, I've decided to go with hard-bitten instead. This makes her a good aligned character. Gearing up the character follows now the normal process, and I'm not going to bore you with a shopping trip. And her backstory has already been established from the story. At this point, Yormunda is now ready to play. Speaking of playing, in the next video we're going to go over some game rules that I've changed from the core Savage Worlds setting and go bit by bit through how things work. This way you have an audio record as well as the text record.